Welcome. I'm Julie Bacon, and you're listening to the Mindset Coaching for Handlers podcast, a podcast for dog handlers who are on a mission to achieve big goals. Here I share lessons, insights, personal stories, and tools you can apply during your next show, trial, or test to help you strengthen your mental game and hopefully cue more consistently. Be sure to check out the show notes where you'll find details about the episodes, plus important links, including the link to the Dogged Planner and Workbook created just for handlers on a mission. So if you're ready to improve your competitive mindset, get out of your own way, and connect with your dog like never before, then it's time to get comfy, bring an open mind, and work your mindset. Hey there, and welcome back to the podcast. Okay, it's time to review our year. I know it's crazy that we're getting to the end of it, and I know many of you still have some really big things on the horizon for December, but the new planners are out, and I'm already thinking about the new year. And before we start setting forward goals, we really do need to look back. So if you're not ready to look back yet, just save this episode for when you are. But I'm going to jump in anyway, because I don't know about you, but that shiny new planner is calling to me. And in order to go forward, I need to look back a little bit. Okay. So we're going to do that. And I'm going to give you some steps and some ideas of how to do this, because most of the time people skip this step, okay? And it's just because people are anxious to go forward, right? Handlers are like, I just want to look forward. Maybe you had a great year, or maybe you had a bad year, and you're just like, I want to leave this year behind either way and just look forward and go forward and forward. And that's great. But I don't want you to miss some of the potential learnings that you may have gotten from this year. And so we're going to talk about that. We're going to give you some ways that you can review the year so that you have like some actionable steps out of it. Not just like, yeah, this is what happened in January and in March, and this happened in June and whatever. It's not just about going back through your planner, if you will, to see what happened. It's actually about getting some like deeper meaning or really some action items out of it, but also some celebrations. Okay. So yeah, we want to celebrate. We're going to talk about that. We're going to make sure that we don't carry any unresolved emotions into the new year, which is kind of a weird thing to say, but I think that that's what happens when we just go forward without the review process. We don't put anything to bed, and we potentially carry it forward. So one of the most important things about doing this review process is to leave 2024 in 2024 and start with a clean slate in 25. Okay. So we're going to figure out how to do that. And we want to see like the full picture, the growth, the good, the bad, the setbacks, maybe even the heartbreaks, and figure out how to pull that all together, take the lessons out of it, take what's necessary to go forward, have those things shape our goals for 25, but also be able to like almost have like a hard line between 24 and 25 when it comes to what you're working on, if that makes sense. And if it doesn't make sense, it will make sense by the time we're done. Okay, so we're going to celebrate. We're going to start with celebrating, because we always start with celebrating, okay? We want to start by celebrating both big wins and small wins, all right? So the big wins sometimes are obvious, right? Maybe it was new titles. Maybe you qualified for something. Maybe you went to an event that you thought you would never do before, you never thought you'd do. Maybe you, I don't know, got your small dog, or your small dog, maybe it was a small dog, your young dog going in the ring. Maybe they made their debut this year, right? Maybe you got outside of your comfort zone, those kinds of things. But smaller goals, or maybe goals that aren't like, I don't know, in the database, right? Don't show up in the AKC or UKI sort of like online logging system, right? Maybe the smaller goals are like, you showed up consistently. You really feel like your mental game is much different from January of this year to now. Maybe you strengthened your relationship with your dog. Maybe you saw the progress or the light in those young dogs, and they went from driving you crazy to actually being, showing you some really great potential. All right. So we want to understand all of it. So you're going to process your goals in 3 categories. Okay. The first is your personal wins. Again, doesn't have to be like a win-win in terms of something you can like brag about on Facebook. It might just be a mental win. But the first one is personal. So you as a handler, what were some of your wins this year that you really feel like you accomplished and you're really proud of? And it could be just, I listen to a mental management podcast every week, okay? Because you dedicated time in that. Or you showed up for things that you thought were so far out of your comfort zone, but you pushed yourself and you really had a great time. Okay. So just think about that. So that's the first category. What are your personal wins as a handler? The second, what are your team wins? So you and your dog. And you might need to do this with each dog, right? Because for each dog, I don't know about you, but I have a very different relationship, very different goals. I'm at very different places with each dog. So I'm going to write down like, what were my team wins for each dog? Of course, Moxie doing the weaves at her nationals definitely goes in the team win category. And there are some other wonderful things, of course, but sometimes it might just be a relationship. Like as I'm saying this, I'm remembering a really great rally run where we didn't get any points. I talked about it in a blog post, but we didn't get any points, but it was the best connected and the happiest that she's run in that ring in forever, right? So that was definitely a team win. So again, could be a title, could be something that you guys were really working toward and you finally got it, right? So that's definitely sometimes I don't want to say titles aren't worthy. They are 100,000,000% worthy, but oftentimes it's what the title represents. So try to dig in a little bit and not just write like, hey, title, 3 letters here, really dig in and what did that title mean? Why was getting that title such a big deal? Okay. And then the third is growth wins, or like the lessons learned, the stuff that maybe you didn't even want to learn because you had to learn it through a challenge, maybe even through a heartbreak. But what were some of those growth wins for you? And how did you grow this year as a handler? Maybe how did you grow maybe as your team? Maybe you guys had to go through something to get to the other side. Maybe it was one of those kinds of stories. But what were the lessons learned? Okay, so the 3 categories again were your personal wins as a handler, your team wins with you and your dog or dogs, and then your growth wins when like lessons learned and even like growing through challenges and so forth. Okay, so what's important about this is as we see this, as we write these down, as we celebrate these, that even small wins help build our confidence, help build our motivation, and show us that, in fact, we have made a lot of progress this year. I say this all the time, but like you can't just look for progress over a week, a weekend, or even a month. You need to look back 90 days or more. And in this case, you're looking back the entirety of the year to see like where you were starting in January versus where you are now. The other thing that this might help with, I don't know, I'm hopeful here, is that you might look back and wish you would have written some more things down, even little notes, even little 1 words here and there. So hopefully, maybe this will motivate you to do that next year so that you can really see the progress you're making as you're making it throughout the year. Okay? All right. So this next part, we processed our wins. Now we're going to process challenges and setbacks. So we know that not every year goes as planned, okay? In most of the time we have great ups and also great downs. It's a roller coaster at best, with dogs, of course. So you might have setbacks, small setbacks, or major setbacks. You might have had, missed a bunch of goals, or maybe even had to deal with an injury. maybe even lost a dog or had to retire one earlier than expected. Okay. Those are big things. And as I've said time and time again, when we don't hit our goals, when we obviously lose a dog or have an injury or even have to retire one ahead of time, those are, I'm going to call them grievable moments. Okay. We get to grieve over those things. No, maybe we didn't lose a dog, but maybe it felt like that, like having to let go of those goals, having to retire that dog, or, having some kind of injury, or like even in my case, realizing like, Moxie is never going to be the agility dog I hoped she'd be, even though ... right? So when we let go of things, sometimes begrudgingly, sometimes they're ripped out of our like clenched fists, we get to grieve those things. So what's important is that we let ourselves do that. We don't just gloss over it. We don't just do the spiritual bypass, which I've talked about, right? We don't just stick a happy face on it and it'll be okay. We actually give ourselves permission to go through it and process it as need be. Okay. So the 3 steps in this for processing the tough stuff, as we'll say, is the first is that give yourself grace. This is, life happens, stuff happens, and it is not a reflection of us. It is not a reflection of who we are as people or as handlers, right? Sometimes things just don't work out the way that we want, and we can't yet see the bigger picture. Okay. But you have to give yourself grace. You have to give yourself permission to go through it. And it's okay. It's okay to struggle. Just know that you are struggling for the bigger picture when you decide that you're going to keep going, right? When it doesn't take you out and you're not rocking in a corner, instead you are getting back up off the floor. That's a great decision. Okay. The second piece is look for the lesson. Is there a lesson in it? I struggle right now to find the lesson in losing my 7-year-old in January of this year, right? I don't know that I'm ever going to find the lesson in that. Okay. That is still tough. It's still hard for me to talk about, but, I know that it made way for new things. Okay. So some things might be really hard. Other things, other setbacks, you might be able to find the lesson in it. You might be able to say, well, at least I'm going to do that differently, or that mistake I made, at least I'll never make that same mistake again, So we do learn from life, right? Or we wouldn't still be here. We do get better at things. We do get more experience. And sometimes our experience just helps another person, right? And so maybe the reason, I lost Trip in January is so I can, be more compassionate and be more helpful to the next person going through something like that, right? We don't yet know, all right, all the time. All right, so that was number 2, look for the lesson. Number 3 is find closure. Whether you journal or write a letter, I think this is a great exercise to do. You might need to get out the tissues depending on how deep this moment goes for you. But like write a letter to yourself, to your dog, to some entity, to no one, dear no one, and just process all the emotions, right? Get it all out. Allow it to be a stream of consciousness. Be angry, be sad, be happy, be all of the things that you need to be. It's okay to start the letter with, I'm so angry that you left. Okay. That could be what you need to say. Or maybe it's not about a loss, and maybe it's just about a setback, and maybe it's about not hitting your goals and your targets and being mad at yourself and holding, being too angry at yourself, right? For not being able to get that last cue or qualify for, some big event that you really wanted to go to. So process that. Sometimes a really great way to process is by writing, stream of consciousness, getting it all out, saying the angry things, saying all the things you would never say to even a friend. You would never vent to that extent because it's too yucky, or at least that's your perception. Okay. But say it all, because the thing we don't want to do is carry these unresolved things into the new year. All right. If we can button them up, and again, don't shove them down if you're not ready, to fully process them. But if possible, we don't want to keep dragging that baggage into the next year, into the next year, into the next year. Right? So, and we certainly don't want to be dragging them into every ring we go into. So to the best we can, and again, we're giving ourselves grace, to the best that we can, let's try to process these lessons once and for all so that we're not still dragging them around with us. Okay? All right. Couple more when we get back. Quick question. Do you ever wish you had more mindset help? Well, the Q membership was created just for that reason. Every month we pick a topic, and then we have 4 lessons, which are kind of like these podcasts, that we dive deeper into. And so if you are ready for more, you're ready for more mindset work, think about joining the Q membership. Annual members get a free coaching session, but you can also choose the monthly option as well. Go to theqcoach.com to learn more. Let's get back to the episode. Alrighty, the next piece of this is to try to spot some patterns or maybe some trends. Maybe some things that have happened or keep happening, and it helps us want to either set the stage for our goals next year or gives us some areas of focus that we want to work on next year, whether it's things that happen good or not so good. Sometimes those help direct us. We can even learn from our calendar. I've looked back at our calendar and realized oh, this is where I spent the majority of my time, whether it was in this ring or in this area or what have you. Do I want to do that again? Or was that just really my kind of unexpressed will coming out, in the form of entry fees, I really did want to do all that, agility or something that year, but I need to spend more time in this other ring. Who knows? But again, when we write things down, we can look back and we can see patterns, and we can start to figure out is that the direction we want to head, or do we need to change it? So here are 3 questions to ask yourself about the 2024 to see if we can uncover some of these patterns. The first thing is, what worked well? Just what worked well this year? From getting a new van or new car crates or something like that. Or, maybe for me, it was having an RV and being able to travel to trials with an RV. Oh my God, that was life-changing for me. It just was a lot easier for me than having to do hotels and that kind of thing. So that worked well. But it could be, different kinds of trials that you went to. It could be different trainers. Maybe you got a new instructor this year. Just could be all kinds of things. What worked well? The second question to ask yourself is, what areas need more attention? Whether you planned to work on it and didn't for whatever reason, or it's just something that you just realized that throughout the year that needs more attention. What was that? For me, it was, more like obedience, really leveling up in that area. I realized that, I've said that before, but maybe I finally have a dog, or maybe that can do it, or the timing is right, or I don't know what kind of magical things sort of alchemized that, but I really decided that this is an area of focus that I really want to put more attention there. And because I think I'll get more out of it. Maybe the return is there finally. Who's to know? But that's one of mine. And then the third question is, are there habits or mindsets that held you back this year? Did you sabotage yourself in some way, with a bad habit? For me, I was really bad with my food and my nutrition, kind of when I went on this road trip in the spring, and I never quite got it back under control. I gave myself this free pass that lasted 6 weeks, and then just became a string of bad habits around my nutrition. Okay. So that would be a habit that held me back, because that does not support kind of my health and wellness goals that I have. And I just really need to get that back on track. Okay. So did it hold me back from how I did in the ring? Maybe not, but it you feel better when you eat better, right? So that I'm putting it into this category because my health and wellness are important if I'm going to run my dogs the way I want to run my dogs. And so fitness might be something for you as well. Who's to know? Okay. Maybe there were other habits or mindsets that held you back this year. Just what were they? No judgment and no solution at this point. Again, you're just reviewing. So just capture, what worked well. Just capture what needs more attention. Just capture the habits or mindsets that held you back. You don't have to do anything about them yet. That's what the planning forward's for. We're just looking back right now. We're just gathering the data so that we're creating a picture of things that yes, then we will start to work on in December maybe. It doesn't even have to be right now, okay? The last section, of course, is ending with gratitude. Gratitude, gratitude, gratitude. No matter if your year was an absolute roller coaster, maybe it was the highest of highs, the lowest of lows, it was train wrecks and podiums, whatever it was, there is gratitude. So we want to make sure that we are reframing our challenges maybe as lessons learned, seeing that we got something out of it, seeing that something good came out of it rather, and that we are grateful for all that we have, everything that happened. When people always ask that question, do you have any regrets? I mean, they don't always ask that question. I guess it's sort of random, just randomly walk up to someone and say, hey, do you have any regrets? But I am one of those people who I don't believe in regrets, because I believe that everything that has happened to me has led me to this point right now, right? It has led me to having a podcast, for that matter, right? For creating a coaching business for handlers, like these things wouldn't have happened if, for instance, I wasn't without a job at a point, and it made me go through this whole like rediscovery, sort of what do I really want to do with my life, sort of, call it a midlife crisis moment. And so that really made me realize that this is what I want to be doing. Okay. So something bad led to something wonderful in that case. Oversimplifying, of course. But my point is our lives, where we are right now, is the sum total of all the things, good and bad otherwise. So being able to look back with gratitude, even when it was something awful, right? I'm not grateful to have lost Trip at 7 years old at the beginning of this year, but I sure am grateful to having him at all. Right? So there is gratitude in all of it. And I want you to really find that. And I want you to end this year with that in your heart, like deep in your heart. Okay. So here's a simple exercise. Okay. Write a note of gratitude to yourselves or to your dogs, right? Maybe to all of them, maybe to one of them, each of them, whatever. Write it to your family. You don't have to send these. You don't have to send any of them. It can be like just a short thank you note. Maybe you're writing like, Jimmy Fallon style thank you notes, right? And you're writing notes to a bunch of people in your lives, maybe just short one-liners even. But write some thank you notes. Again, you don't have to send them, right? Your dog's probably not going to read them. Okay. So don't worry about the fancy stationery. But just write some thank you notes. Reflect on what you're proud of, like what you learned, what you're thankful for, what gift that person brought you. Maybe you're thankful to certain friends, certain people, your family, your chosen family, just write some thank you notes. Write a long love letter to your dogs or to your family or whatever. Again, don't have to send it. Not the point. The point is, I want you to be deep in gratitude. I want you to fall down the gratitude rabbit hole and just feel all the things and feel what it's like to be just so present and so grateful and just realize what you have, right? Because gratitude isn't about ignoring the hard stuff. That is spiritual bypassing. Okay, we're not doing that. So it's not about ignoring the hard stuff. It's about honoring the journey. It's honoring the journey, the growth, your partnership, just the whole thing. So I think a really good way to do that is, pour it all out. Pour it all out on paper, right? The researchers, all the smart people, the pen and paper, pen in hand and paper, there's still like a very neurochemical connection there when we do it that way. But if you're a typey person, or if you just want to record yourself or whatever and then delete it, that's fine too. But just go down that, write the love letter to your dog, write the thank you letters to a bunch of people. Don't have to send it, or do send it. What a wonderful thing. Can you imagine getting such a wonderful thank you note at the end of the year? Like a snail mail from somebody, just a card in the mail that says, thank you for being in my life. This is what you did for me this year. Oh my God, that would be amazing to receive, right? So mail it, don't mail it, do what you want with it. But this is a really great exercise and a really great way to end the year, even if it was ups and downs and sideways. This is really going to help. Okay. So I want you to, out of this, go into the next year clear-headed. I think one of the most impactful things about doing like goal setting and really truly doing it, not just like writing down a few lifetime things and then like forgetting about it. But I mean, goal setting in the way that I've got it outlined in like my dogged planner and dogged workbook, okay, is that it gives us clarity. Nothing makes us more clear than when you have to fill out the answer to like, what do you want most this year? Okay. Like what I think about it is like, if you're probably listening to me driving, if a genie, okay, is sitting next to you, can be whichever genie you like to imagine. I don't, whether it's an I Dream of Jeannie type or a Robin Williams type, but put your genie in your passenger seat. And the genie turns to you and says, I can give you one wish. What do you want? Well, nothing makes us get more clarity, right, than that moment. Okay. So whether that genie gives you 1 wishes or 3 wishes, or you get 3 wishes per dog, right? Then that translates into the 3 biggest goals you have for your dog this year, each dog this year, then that's clarity. And to me, once we have clarity, now we know how to steer. In that, now we know how to design our year around those goals. Because if that is the most important goal, then that means I'm going to these trials or these seminars, or I need these skills, or I need to brush up on this or that. Okay. So that's the genius of goal setting. Really, it just boils down to clarity, getting ultra clear about what it is you want to do, and then letting those direct your actions. But before we go into that, we've got to do the review, because we don't want to drag any of this dirt on our shoes into the next year. Okay? Heavy emotions, whatever it is, we want to process it, find a way to honor it, and let it go in the most constructive of ways. Doesn't mean forgetting. It just means it's not holding us back, and we are able to find that clarity and move forward into the new year. All right. I hope that helps. There's a lot of homework in this episode, okay? So I'm not even going to try to summarize it. Go back, bookmark this episode, whatever you need to do, so that when you're ready to go through these steps, you can be somewhere where you can write down the steps. And also, I will include this in my newsletter next week. So if you are not on my newsletter list, go to the show notes, and sign up. And then these things will be in writing. And if you don't want a newsletter because you don't want another email, I understand. Go to the blog sometime after Tuesday of next week, of whenever you're listening to this, and theqcoach.com/blog, and you will be able to read this. Okay? Because you're driving, don't take notes while you're driving. Just be pondering. Okay? All right. With all that said, I hope you have a fantastic week with your dog, a fantastic holiday season. Thanks so much for listening to the Mindset Coaching for Handlers podcast with me, Julie Bacon. I am so grateful for your precious time. Check out my Dogged Planner, workbook, and journal available on Amazon. Just search for Dogged Planner. I also offer monthly membership that's perfect for ongoing support of your awesome goals. Check out theqcoach.com for details, or just stop by and check out all the ways you can work on your mindset. And be sure to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at theqcoach and let me know how it's going. Finally, please share, subscribe, and leave a review. This helps us podcasters tremendously. Plus, I know I get my best podcast recommendations from friends. Thanks, and have a great week with your dogs.